There's a lot of confusion and debate about electric vehicles and therefore about EV charging. So let's talk through some of those myths and try and get to some straight facts. The first big point of confusion with electric vehicles and electric vehicle charging that I think of is the availability of charging infrastructure. This gets into what is called range anxiety with electric vehicles. So if I head out on a long trip, am I going to be able to charge when I need to?
Yep, absolutely. So interestingly, there are now more EV chargers in the US than there are gas stations.
Wow.
As of November 2024, there are over 200,000 public charging locations, and there's about 1,000 being added each and every week. So the notion that there's nowhere to charge probably comes from the fact that EV charging stations aren't quite as visible as gas stations may be because they're located not always with gas stations, but in random parking lots. So there are various apps that'll show those different locations to make it easy for you as you're going on a road trip to find those EV charging stations. This graph shows growth in EV fast charging locations broken out by power output. Most chargers are fast chargers that can output between 250 and 349 kilowatts, and there are an increasing number of ones capable of really fast charging of over 350 kilowatts.
I'm seeing that there are lots of charging stations out there, but then the issue is like how long it takes. Am I going to be sitting around for hours waiting for the vehicles to get back on the road?
Not hours. Charging times will depend on which level charging port you're using. If you're using level 1, yes, that will take a while. But if you're out and about on a road trip, most likely you're going to use a DC fast charger, and you'll use one of the apps to locate those. In a pinch, you'll probably go for a level 2 charger, but that's more of a backup plan than what your primary plan would be. When you're using a DC fast charger, most vehicles can add 100 miles of range in as little as 20 minutes. That makes it pretty reasonable that even for long distance trips, you'll be able to recharge relatively quickly during a typical pit stop.
My family can probably live with that. A couple times you've noted how different vehicles might charge at different rates. They don't all charge at exactly the same way?
No, there is a pretty big variety. Some cars can charge around the 350 kilowatts using that rate. Some are as low as 50. So that will have a very noticeable impact on your overall time to get up to what most people want, which is that 80% charge. Because you'll see very fast charging up to 80%, and then to preserve the battery, the charging rate starts to drop off after 80%. So people will usually just call 80% good enough and continue their travels from there.
Actually, now that you mention it, I've noticed, because at my home I charge both a Nissan Leaf and a Chevy Bolt, and the Bolt seems to add miles more slowly. They have similar fuel efficiency, but for whatever reason, battery chemistry, battery technology, it just takes on the energy at a different rate.
Yep, and that is absolutely true. The Bolts are one of the slower charging vehicles on the market.
And I've read about some of the new models, Kia, and also super expensive Lumen, which are charging at 800 volts. So they'll just take on,
Yes, yep.
They'll be a full charge in 5 minutes.
Exactly. The time required to charge an EV's battery will vary greatly depending on the type and power output of the charger, and there can be a lot of variability even among the same charger types that you see. Acceptance rate of the battery, which we were just talking about, so that is the physical limitations of the battery within that vehicle and how much power they can accept at any given time. And then just overall the capacity of a battery. So if you have a 30 kilowatt battery, that's going to get full quicker than a 100 kilowatt battery. So those are the factors to keep in mind around the overall charging rate for a specific vehicle.
So when they say fully recharge the battery, a lot depends on how big the battery is.
Exactly, yep. Just like if you were trying to fill a bigger gas tank.
As we've said, we're trying to focus on chargers, but part of that still relates to the vehicles. And part of the question is about whether or not the type of vehicle I want is going to be electric. What's the current status of that?
There is generally an overall shift in the market to go to electric vehicles. As you've likely noticed, there's more and more models available on the market in a variety of different types. So if you want a sedan, those are available, hatchbacks, pickup trucks. So there's a wide range available right now. As of 2025, there are more than 100 passenger vehicle models available, and as I mentioned, that's sedans to trucks to SUVs to crossovers, sports cars, even EV muscle cars. And they're not expensive vehicles in all cases. You can certainly find an expensive EV just like you can find an expensive gas-powered car, but they come at all sorts of price points, new and used.